Hey, welcome back, and thanks for tuning in to Recruiting Insight. This is the place to be if you want to connect with the most successful recruiters and hiring managers and innovators in the real estate industry. Hey, it's a great day to recruit, and today we'll be joined by Rob Keefe. Rob is the founder and president of Relitix. If you haven't heard of Relitix, prepare to be amazed. Rob's company helps real estate brokerages use data and artificial intelligence to make better management decisions, recruit and coach more effectively, and find new ways to stick it to their competitors. Now, full disclosure, Rob and I have something in common besides real estate. We were classmates together at the Naval Academy some 30-odd years ago, and we both spent time as naval officers before jumping into the real estate industry. Before starting Relitix, Rob led organizations in every corner of the residential real estate, including real estate brokerage, real estate development, mortgage banking, title, and relocation management. He also served as the chairman of the Wisconsin Realtors Association, where he represented the state's 14,000 realtors and has served as a board member in the National Association of Realtors. So let's jump in. I think you're going to learn a lot today. Well, hey Rob, thanks for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to be able to meet you and connect with you on the topic of your company and what you're doing here in real estate. So, can you tell us just a little bit about how you went from being in the Navy as a Navy diver to ending up in real estate?
Well, Ben, thanks for having me on. And let me first say it's a real treat to actually be working with a classmate of mine in the real estate industry, in real estate tech, no less. There's only 900 or so of us out there, and I think of us all as sort of family. So it's great to do this with you. I was raised in real estate. My grandfather started our family business in the 40s here in southeastern Wisconsin, and taken over by my father. And it had just been sort of in the blood by the time I'd been in the Navy 10 years or so. As you probably remember, the deployments and the separation from home and family get pretty intense. I had two young kids, and it was just time for me to move back. And my father had been eager for me to help him out in the family business for a long, long time. So decided that it was time to move back to southeastern Wisconsin and try to figure out how to spell mortgage and what it is to go from leading a group of sort of high testosterone type A divers to an office full of a very different demographic of a real estate agent.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's I didn't know that family connection. So that's why. So you came back to that, and so when you came back, of course, you were in running the real estate company. It sounds like you've done a number of different things, different angles to this. At some point along the way, I think it's maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you decided to start Relitix. So what was kind of the catalyst for that?
I had a technical background. The Navy put me through grad school at MIT, and I had always been sort of on the numbers side of anything we did in the Navy, all the way up through running the real estate brokerage and the relocation company, which is what I did immediately before starting Relitix. So I knew the power of data, and I'm very familiar with the tools that were out there, but I thought that they were missing a huge opportunity to go beyond simply supplying raw numbers on an agent. Ben closed 2.3 million last year. That's up 11%. To say, well, what does that mean? To place some context around it, and then to bring the power of all these data analytics platforms, artificial intelligence, machine learning, to bring those to the bear on the problem of managing real estate brokerages. There's a lot of tools out there, as you know, that have been created to support the agent in their marketing efforts to identify future buyers and sellers and so on, but very little investment in that sort of technology to help run a real estate brokerage and to sort of close some of the major gaps out there in running a brokerage, specifically the difficulty of finding good office management.
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit. So when you looked at the landscape out there, there's a lot, like you said, some tools that are out there. You don't need to mention any names, but I think most people know who they are. What was missing? What do you think were the big holes from what was being offered already out there?
Well, text and guidance. I sort of think of it as the so what factor. So you can pull this, you can using maybe just even the MLS search tools, you can determine how much an agent closed and what their trend is over last year, and maybe some median and average close price, things like that, in units. But there's no help beyond that. It's sort of like, well, here's the number. Now you take it from here. But what's been happening over the last 20 years with the huge improvements in the amount of data and data storage and the cost of data storage and in computing power is that in most other industries that have large amounts of data, the data science is beginning to place context around the number. So it isn't just sort of regurgitating and saying this person closed this much. It's saying, well, this is where they're at in their career. And because this is their trend, this is what they might do in the future. This is how they stack up against their peers. And this is what it would mean for you to recruit this person. The sort of shorthand version of what we tried to do was Moneyball for real estate agents. We have a ton of data on agents. We have every single transaction they've ever done, even the ones that didn't close. So with that, we can uncover patterns of behavior. We can uncover things about where they're at in their life cycle, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, and make certain increasingly accurate predictions about what they're likely to do in the future. Using that and framing it the right way, then that becomes management guidance. So we're taking a recruiter, an office manager who's got to balance a lot of different job responsibilities, managing an office, reviewing contracts, dealing with agent issues, dealing with just office issues, and then, oh, by the way, recruiting. And we're trying to make the hours that particular individual devotes to that recruiting function much more productive by supplying some data-driven sort of superhero powers on top of that to identify the best 10 agents to call, given what you're trying to do. Or if you're worried about retention, which are the 3 most vulnerable agents in your pool from what the data is telling us, and then using that just to increase your odds and increase the productivity. So long answer to a short question, but it's really sort of an apples to apples or apples to oranges comparison. We were never trying to be a better version of the other data platforms. We were trying to do something a little bit different.
Yeah. So let's focus down a little bit on recruiting then. I can get the management piece of it. If I was running an office or even running a brokerage, I'd want that data at my fingertips. I'd want to be able to have some sort of context around it. And if you're helping with that, that's going to be a huge benefit. Specific to recruiting, let's just start at the 10,000-foot view level. So you get to see not just data from one company, you get to see data from multiple companies, even in the same market. Overall, how would you feel that just the human capital in general is being used in real estate? I mean, what's going well, and where do you think maybe we need some improvements?
Yeah. I think in general, there are exceptions to this. There are as in every sort of general statement, but I think in general we don't do a especially good job of managing this. We'll specifically talk about recruiting, experienced agent recruiting as an industry. So let's take big companies. We work with quite a few big companies. We see their organization. Let's say they fall into 2 separate categories. One is the big companies that basically assign recruiting as a side job to the office management. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is taking what is essentially a sales job. Remember, recruiting is business to business sales. You're trying to sell your organization to another business, which is that individual agent. You're taking a very difficult venture, which is business to business sales over time to a large number of prospects, and making it someone's side job that has very little accountability. Even in organizations that have a dedicated recruiting structure, it seems to be sort of handled more like sort of old school relationship recruiting. Hey, who'd you talk to? Oh, I know that guy. Oh, now that person's kind of lousy. Oh, I heard this office is in trouble. Maybe you should call some people there.
Right.
If we were going to handle this as in the same way that, let's say, 3M or Kraft Heinz handles their outbound business-to-business sales efforts, we would have a structure. We'd have KPIs. We'd create a funnel. We would track performance over time. People have the number they need to hit. So
right.
If you're an office manager or you're a dedicated recruiter for a large company, and I'm expecting you to sign 3 new agents a month, we should know how many outbound calls that takes. And we should be able to track your throughput through the funnel. And if you're not hitting your numbers, we need to intervene and say, what else do you need? Do you need better names? Can we give you some more marketing support? As you know, that just doesn't happen very regularly in our industry. It's because it's treated as sort of something everybody should be good at if they're in management. But I think that that makes it seem easier than it actually is.
Challenge, and you and I discussed it, before the session here, that this is a huge problem, and it's very difficult for these owners to get managers to recruit on that part-time basis, as we said, or even full-time recruiters having the information and the focus and the really professionalism that they need to do this job well. So if we look at an individual office level, I mean, you're obviously able to look across the industry with the data that you have. But if you start to zero in maybe to one of your clients, or maybe even down at the office level, what are some of the things that you see are that these managers are doing well? The ones that are performing at a high level, what do you see different about them or different about their offices that seem to cause them to perform better?
Well, let's say that I think there's probably 2 big elements that I see the people that are doing this best seem to adhere to. One is they've got a very clear idea of the value proposition, points of differentiation, and so on. This is not a generic sort of, hey, I see you're struggling, why don't you come work for us? This is exactly why you would come work for us. This is why, this is what makes us different than anybody else in the market. The differentiators, it is, like I said before, it's a business to business sale, and you need to have a very clear idea of the product you're selling. But more than that, you need to approach recruiting with intention. You need to look at the kind of agent pool you're looking to develop, rather than just taking, doing essentially trying to fill bodies. The best recruiters, the best sort of managers of their agent human capital approach recruiting with an end state in mind. They want to have a pool that looks like 50% experienced agents, 30% mid-career, 20% new, or something like that. There's any number of different sort of patterns that they can follow. And just you enter that understanding that agents at different points in their career bring different strengths and weaknesses to a pool. If you have experienced agents, let's say the people who have been in the business for 15 years, what you'll have is somebody that's very stable, has a relatively low turnover at that point. They're not jumping brokerages like like they were earlier in their career, but their growth is going to be more limited. They're going to have more stable, but that also means slower growing group. And sometimes less energy, often a little less energy. On the other end of the scale, with brand new agents, you've got lots of energy, some of it misdirected. You've got a huge retention overhead because this years 1 through 3 are their big, or is when an agent's most likely to leave their brokerage. And you've got a big training overhead. But if you can make it work, the built-in growth rate for those agents is like 100% a year if they stay. So you want you don't want all of one or all of the other. We can both imagine what those offices would look like.
Right.
You want the right mix, and then you need to back that into your recruiting strategy and recruit to get the mix you're looking for.
Gotcha. That takes data on one side. You've got to have good data to make those decisions and make those figure out what it is that is real and not real. But on the other hand, you've got to have some good strategic thought that's mixed in with that, and then of course boiling that down to execution of, okay, now someone actually has to do this work. Someone actually has to make the calls and do the follow up and do everything that's necessary to, of course, make experienced agent recruiting work and make this come into reality. So let's dive down even a step further into some of the. I loved your connection to Moneyball, or that description before. So if I was a manager in an office and I was using your product, what are or even just maybe getting some coaching from you, what are some of the factors that I should be looking for that wouldn't be very obvious, or when Billy Bean was doing this, it was on base percentage or slugging percentage. It was not the normal sort of metrics that people look at. Are there any kind of things that are there that we don't know about or that we should know about?
Well, again, it goes to the strategy of the brokerage that's doing the recruiting. You want to recruit to your strength. If your strength is in management of listings, then you want to go and find agents that are having issues with the management of listings, but not too many issues. Mm-hmm. You want just sort of like correctable issues with the management of listings. So we need to develop a metric that relates to how well agents manage listings. Our system has that kind of metric, so we can then take and segregate, start with 10,000 agents and get down to the 100 most receptive to that sort of outbound sales effort. If our expertise is in taking newer agents and that show potential and developing them into full-blown rock stars, then we have to have the tools to find these agents deep inside the agent pool that are not lighting up anybody's screen yet, because their overall production is not especially high, but they're way ahead of their peer group for how long they've been in the business. We have we developed a machine learning model that looks for those specific kinds of agents and flags them in the agent pool based on demonstrated success, what leads to demonstrated success over time in newer agents. So, specific to data and in general, I guess our product in particular, there are some machine learning derived metrics that can get at those specific niches. Mm-hmm. But if you were looking for agents that meet a certain profile, you just got to have the tools to be able to filter for that profile in the agent pool and concentrate your efforts there rather than shotgunning it. So
I can see that it's helpful to hear you explain it, because now I'm starting to get this where the context is and where the the data comes to life when there's context around it, or when it's connected to a value proposition or connected to a particular need or a particular strength that an office has. So let's pivot one more time down to retention. And I know that as the market's shifting a little bit right now, getting a little tighter in a lot of areas. There's a lot of brokerages right now and teams and others that are just like, hey, I need to hang on to the people that I have. And work with the people that are on my team already. So you mentioned early in the process here that you can also use a lot of this data for retention. Are there certain things that you see in companies that are kind of red flags? What should I be looking for as that broker out there saying, hey, which one of my 25 agents here, or which 3 of my 25 agents is going to leave in the next 6 months?
Yeah, that's a major pain point. It's just especially painful to have people leave you. Remember from my 10 years in brokerage, it almost feels like a personal insult when they someone that you've worked with so long decides to pack up and go down the street. There are several ways of attacking this. Obviously, the better you take care of the agents and the more you're on top of their needs, the more they feel like their chance of growth in your brokerage is going to be higher than going somewhere else. And part of that is staying on top of their numbers to make sure that you have early warning when things are starting to slide. Office managers that are managing 50 plus agents, it's hard to keep that granular of a track of every one of those 50. So data-driven tools like ours will help with that. We have part of our product that provides data-driven coaching cues for certain agents that are basically little early warning flags saying, hey, this person's production's starting to slip, or this person looks like they're struggling with high-end listings. Maybe you ought to look into it. So, but it also, on the flip side of that, a well-timed congratulations go a long way. Don't underestimate the value of a pat in the back from the owner, especially for newer agents who's maybe sort of in the shadow of the top producers in the office, but for whom 100% per year growth is something that certainly warrants congratulations and the sort of thing that builds loyalty. Finally, one of the things that we developed a few years ago, and I'm with the first in the industry to do this, we developed a true AI model to examine an agent's pattern of behavior in the market, things like listings taken, listings closed, active listing count, and so on, and ran it through a model, or we trained a model using 2 or 3 million training examples to predict likelihood that the agent will leave in the next 3 months. The insight behind that is that agents often will behave differently if they're planning a departure. If you're watching it close, you might pick up on it. Things like they stop taking new listings, or they start taking them a lot slower than they did. You'll see expirations start going up a little higher than they've been before. Just they're trying to engineer a soft landing. They're trying to deal with you as little as possible after they leave. I knew intuitively that that's something that machine learning driven model would easily pick up on, and in fact, it does. So it will flag agents that look like they're engineering an artificially low listing count, but it'll also pick up on other patterns that we weren't really aware of. And some of them involve what we call unplanned departures. These would be newer agents that just become so heavily recruitable because of their success in the market that they get calls.
Yeah.
So that's the other flip side. People might not be looking to leave. They might just be so successful with your brokerage that every other recruiter is calling them and throwing sort of these lavish offers at them. And you need to know that that's going on and be able to have something to counter that because some will leave simply on economic arguments.
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think that rising above that level, they're just getting a lot of attention. It does wear an agent down over time, and it becomes very difficult to recruit to. Or to retain on. So one final question. There's been a huge growth of teams in the last few years, and that whole dynamic. Some of these teams are becoming so large they look like brokerages or act like brokerages in some senses. So any thoughts on how your platform and this type of work would help or make a brokerage able to recruit from a team? What's the team like dynamic going on?
Well, teams and real estate data have a very uneasy relationship. If a team leader puts all their production under themselves in the MLS, the team members disappear. Yeah. And we have no insight into them. Nobody other than the team itself really has insight into what's going on within the confines of that team. And the MLS really is not well set up to sort of report on that. But to the extent that we have some visibility into teams through co-listing and co-selling arrangements, where the team leader splits credit with the team member that's involved in managing the listing, for example, then we do get a fair amount of data on who might be a member of which team, who are likely team leaders, and we can sort of track the membership in and out of teams. And I guess what I would say in observing the sort of dynamics of teams through the data is that teams are just another form of a brokerage. I mean, they have a broker owner who's the team leader, and they have different agents. Now, of course, it's more structured within the team. You're a listing agent, you're a buyer's agent, you handle these sorts of things. But we find agents that once they hit certain milestones or certain production levels, become very difficult for team leaders to retain because the economic arguments to start their own team become very strong. Team leaders also suffer from the same issue that brokers suffer from, in that they have a lot of deadwood. Maybe this is somewhat mitigated by the team leader having their thumb on the team members a little more than brokers tend to on their agents. But this is going to be an issue that our industry faces here over the next 6 to 9 months. By some calculations, we might have double the number of real estate agents we need for the transaction count that's likely ahead if we hit 6, 7, 8% interest rates or higher. So we're going to find, just in terms of human capital management in real estate, not enough transactions to go around. So there will be sort of a washing out process, and that's going to be another management challenge for the industry, and not one that the current generation of newer managers has ever experienced before.
No, I hear you. And I think you and I were both probably around for the last downturn. And, during that time frame, there was a lot of people that came into the industry really that shouldn't have been there. And then, of course, when things got tough, they all left. I think we could see the same thing. Can't predict the future anymore. You can probably predict the future better than I can because you got more data, but we can't predict what's going to go on. But what we do know is that if there is an exodus that happens, that doesn't mean we stop recruiting, because often that means that the wrong people were in the business in the first place, and we need to replace them now with the new people, or find the people in other companies who need to be in the right spot now. To really take care of, the transactions that are there. It isn't that people are going to stop living in houses and stop doing business. So,
I also think that there's going to be a big recruiting opportunity, because a lot of the survivors, we'll call them, the people that will continue in business and succeed, have ended up in more marginal firms over the last 3 or 4 years. It's exactly what happened 12 years ago. Firms that that rely completely on transaction count, and in some cases, and aren't going to make it. So they need a home, and they need to be recruited to make their home in your brokerage.
Well, we're going to wrap up for today. I could sit here. I think I could talk about this for the rest of the day, actually. But so maybe we'll have you on again as things progress here and things change over time. For all those that are, listening, if you haven't checked out Rob's company yet, you should. You really should. It's worth looking at. Relitix. Relitix.com is their website. But Rob, thanks for sharing all the amazing details of the work that you're doing there. And now for those of you that are doing the hard work of recruiting each day, I hope you'll take what you learned and go make a difference.